Ms. Sushila Nair is the Vice President for Security Services at NTT Data's Chief Digital Office. NTT Data Services is a digital business and IT business leader headquartered in Plano, Texas. It is one of the largest business units outside Japan of the trusted global innovator NTT DATA Corporation, a top 10 IT providers and part of the $109B NTT Group. Sushila has served as a Chief Information Security Officer for 10 years at NTT Data and has over 25 years of experience in computing, infrastructure, business, and security. An experienced cybersecurity thought leader, he has worked in diverse areas across telecommunications, risk analysis, credit card fraud, and served as a legal expert witness. She has also worked with the insurance industry in Europe and America on methods of underwriting e-risk insurance based on ISO 27001. She plays an active role in supporting best practices and skills development within the cybersecurity community, including being on the board of the largest ISA CA chapter in the world. She has held notable leadership roles in business strategy development, sales enablement, and product development, and drives ongoing success through a proven approach of mentoring, industry knowledge, and real-world experience. Thank you so much, attendees, for attending our conference. As a reminder to all of you, this conference is being recorded. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Please use the question and answer tool if you have a question for the speaker. The stage is all yours, Sushila. You can now share your content and unmute yourself. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So today I'm going to be talking about security in the 2020s, how to train the next generation of cyber experts. And I'm going to draw on my knowledge of how we pivoted ourselves during the pandemic. So, you know, in the past, remember when we used to collect ourselves and our phones and our keys and drive into work, and work was a place, right? And we were safely behind our walls. Control was centralized. And then virtually overnight, the world changed. And there've been so many amazing hero stories, companies in a matter of weeks just pivoting from in-person work to remote work. We were forced to use tools that helped us to remotely collaborate. Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, all of this exploding, you know, with users sharing information, working, you know, remotely. If you weren't in the cloud before, you're definitely there now, right? M365, Microsoft's cloud version of Office, is one of the most popular cloud use cases. And a shortage of hardware, the need to support work from anywhere, has really resulted in many organizations pushing out capability, sometimes with very little security designed into it. So what skills do we need as the world has changed so rapidly? So this is my skill list, but I'm sure you have your own requirements. Now, a majority of organizations, when asked, actually said during the pandemic, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you, that 60% of their employees had been required to use new skills due to the technology changes as a result of the pandemic. And that they recognized that they had to reskill their workforce to be able to meet their objectives and drive the value for their stakeholders and really be able to pivot to leveraging these new technology that we've kind of pushed out. And so although information security budgets have continued to grow year on year about 5 to 6%, industry experts estimate that there's a huge shortage of skilled security professionals worldwide. And I'm sure everybody on this that's listening knows this, right? You've seen it every time you go and hire somebody. And we believe the shortage of skilled security professionals worldwide may reach 3.5 million by 2021. And so the availability of security talent, or the lack of, has emerged as one of the key limiting factors in our capability to execute new projects. And that really means that when we have smart, clever people, right, subject matter experts, we need to be able to match our top performance with our highest impact projects and really understand the low value projects that we can delegate, outsource, or eliminate. But in some way, we need to be able to clearly articulate what skills we need to be able to manage the new normal. And I thought this was such an interesting list, right? This list actually was surfaced through LinkedIn data. And they look at information over 660 million professionals and 20 million jobs. And they look at what are the most in-demand soft and hard skills. And what's really fascinating is time and time again, they say, you know, what we're really missing is soft skills in many of our technology people. And when you think about it, right, cybersecurity people really need the capability to be able to persuade, to be able to collaborate. They require emotional intelligence because often, you know, building security into projects requires some negotiation, shall we say. So it's really important to consider that when we have people in the organization, we're not just looking for tech skills, right? We're also looking for wonderful soft skills that allow us to really leverage our technical skills well. So let's understand then the state of the workforce. And this is one of my favorite reports. So definitely go onto ISACA.org and download the State of Cybersecurity 2020. ISC Squared as well, which you see on the other side of your screen. They've also got a great cybersecurity workforce study, but really, really love the ISACA one. So, you know, one of the things that's revealed is we have a look out at what the statistics say. We see that many top recruiting sources are really describing that the way that we're getting new people into key technical areas that we require is from other departments. 28% of that is being filled by other departments or other companies in the same industry. So we really understand that organizations recognize that we're not always going to find the right people. The other thing that came out of the survey that I thought was really interesting is that technical managers often say that hiring managers are bringing the wrong people up for interviews. 70% of folks said they generally didn't believe that the applicants were well qualified to do the job that they were, you know, interviewing for. And so that's a really, really high number. And some of our vision that we can just go out to the market and hire the right person may not always be a good match. And so that leads us to this, right? How do we solve the skills gap problem? You know, there are three mechanisms to be able to solve our skills gap problem. We can go out there and just hire folks, right? That's a great mechanism. A lot of good people out there, right? But we've also talked about the fact that that the data shows that often we struggle to find the right people, that some of the skills that we're looking for, especially currently around digital transformation, are actually in low supply. So our other choice might be to upskill. So take some existing people that we have, they're working in the security area perhaps, and upskill them to cloud security experts, for instance. Or we could build our own subject matter experts from scratch. So let's think about how and which path we might actually take to be able to solve our skills problem. Well, hiring folks to solve the skills gap problem, I mean, this is excellent, right? They hit the ground running. They say that they've rolled out this before. They know, you know, how to do this because they've done it once before, at least once before. And we need to know when we're going out and we're hiring to fill a gap, what exactly we're looking for, because we're really saying, hey, these are the skill sets, right? We're going to put them in. Now, we recognize that with niche skills, right, it takes time to fill those positions. And we're saying 76% of people are going, you know what, we can't even find these people to fill these positions. And what we see in terms of cyber attacks is when we do not have that cyber position filled, then 42% of organizations said that they saw more successful cyber attacks against them. So hiring time really matters. And when we're thinking about filling a position, we need to think about how long it will take us to find this unique skill set, and how unique is that skill set, right? So great points for hiring, but also some cautions that we need to consider. The second area is let's upskill some people, right? We got some smart people in our organization. Why don't we take them and turn them into experts? That sounds like a really good idea. What kind of skills gaps do we see? What do we need to do to ensure that these people can do the right kind of jobs? Well, actually, 56% of the study cited soft skills like leadership, communication, collaboration being the largest gap. Now, this really is an argument for upskilling your workers, because if you have people with the right soft skills, and that is one of the largest gaps, then actually giving them the right technology skills sometimes really makes sense. And I often do that where I see really, really smart people with the right soft skills and a great learning attitude, then I might go down that track because I might get better results because they have great institutional knowledge and they have emotional intelligence, right? Which is great. We also see not that far behind, 36% struggling with security controls. And one of the things that is coming up time and time again is in order to automate, we need to understand coding. And so we see a real shortage of coding skills as well. But we need to understand what we actually require so that we understand the gaps so that we're able to remediate. And we're going to come to that very shortly. So our final option, right? Let's build the expert from scratch. Maybe you've got campus hire programs. Maybe you've got universities you're working with. Maybe you just want to hire some college graduates because, you're trying to build a pipeline of talent within your organization. That's what we do, right? Pipelines of talent are really important. So these people that may not have the skills today that you're going to build from scratch might really bring value within your organization. So one of the things that you need to consider, right, when you're balancing this is there's no one answer. What you're really doing is you're baking the cake of your workforce, right? You're trying to get all those ingredients right. And so when we think about it, you're going to have some critical in-demand skills, right, that are short-term skills. Maybe you need a cloud strategy expert, right? And those in-demand skills are going to be harder to be able to hire. Right, so we recognize that. You might have some internal technology that's really niche that you can't even hire for, right? Because it's so difficult to be able to find these people because nobody remembers version 3 of that particular technology. So some of that you're just going to say, hey, I need to build that because it's difficult to kind of track down. And then there are some core skills, right? Like firewall management, like on-premise management, where you're going to say, hey, those are skills that I really, really need today, but I don't need that kind of pipeline for it because it's a declining skill over the next 1 to 3 years. And then, the digital skills that we have, this is a targeted opportunity to recruit and develop skills where we need a large number of folks and they're a little easier to hire. So you're really building up this matrix and you're using all 3 of those techniques. You're going to hire, you're going to upskill, and you're going to build from scratch. But how do you know what you're building, right? Well, in order to do that, you need to move from a project to a product mindset. This is something that I so believe in. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you guys about it today. A product is anything that can be offered to a market to solve a problem or to satisfy a want or need. So when I talk about a product management mindset, I don't mean that your organization makes widgets, right? I don't mean that you have a physical product like, I don't know, this teacup, for instance, right? You might have a service that you're rolling out, like a messaging service for people, or a collaboration tool like Microsoft Teams. These are still what we would say is part of product management, right? Whether you're rolling out a service or whether you're rolling out a widget, it all goes through a similar cycle. It goes through envisioning, funding, developing. It should be, depending on whether you're using it internally or you're delivering it externally, you might need to market it and sell it. But you definitely need to deliver it, operate it, manage it, retire it. Projects definitely have a start point and an end point. If your services aren't going away, then you need to move from this project mindset to a product mindset. And products are generally developed by product managers, like myself, right? And so how do you do this? Well, first of all, you need to identify the capabilities within your security portfolio, right? You need to look at what you've got and say, hey, what am I delivering to the business? You're going to identify product managers and ensure that they understand what your product lifecycle looks like. And then you're going to create that product lifecycle for your services. And that is a way that you're going to create new capabilities within your organization. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So let's say you've decided to roll out security monitoring using a SIEM. What you'll do is you'll build a service release document or service description document. So this is a document that says, hey, what features am I going to use in this particular product, right? What capabilities do I have in the product? And what kind of service level agreements am I going to offer to the business, right? So what's the uptime? What's going to be my response time? Also, I need to think about what kind of uptime I require. So all of the feature sets of the service that you are developing for the business, you have in there, as well as metrics, right? To understand, is the service a success, right? Maybe you're measuring the number of help desk tickets, all of these kind of things you've done during the envisioning. And then you're going to identify who are your subject matter experts who are going to deliver the service, including a champion, right? It's really, really important that when you develop new services, that you have champions who really encourage learning within your organization. You're going to conduct a skills gap analysis and then run focused training to really enable an adaptive model. And one of the ways that you might think about this is like a 70-20-10 as being a model for agile enablement. 70% should come from experience and experimentation. So things like hands-on labs, absolutely critical, right? Things that enable your people to actually experience setting up an infrastructure, experience adding new users. That's what we understand is the most effective for them to be able to perform and learn their tasks. 20% is from working from others who get people to shadow, and 10% comes from planned learning solutions, like, you know, going out and doing a very structured learning program like a degree. So develop SOPs. So once you've actually set up your model for agile enablement, you want to think about developing standard operating procedures. And so your service document leads to developing your standard operating procedures, which are kind of procedures for how you're going to deliver that service. And when you develop your SOPs, that actually allows you to identify which candidates are going to be done by people and which candidates are going to be done through scripts and automation. And then on an ongoing maintenance, right, you're going to use ticket data for additional candidates for automation. And that's on a very high level, how you actually build services and how you ensure you have the right people with the right skills to deliver those services. And so, you know, you're going to go through, and this is actually a real example, right? Examples of what we're doing, where we're actually going through and we're identifying different people and identifying who's going to do the implementation, who's going to do the design, who's setting up the R&D environment, right? And have they done the technical training? How are we tracking these people, right? Do we expect them to do related certs? And we're using metrics to measure success because it's people that are delivering these services, and we really need them to have the right skills to be able to deliver this well. I just like this because it actually shows how, you know, behind the scenes, this is real. Yep. So here's a photograph of in fact, a center of excellence that we created, right, by doing exactly what we've described, right? So we identified what kind of trends was occurring and what services we needed to add to our service catalog, and then went through and focused on talent development to build up a pipeline of the subject matter experts that we needed to be able to create a global center of excellence around digital transformation. And one of the critical things that we learned from that, right, is that you have to make learning part of your culture. You know, the majority of skill sets that we actually look for on LinkedIn are new skill sets. We have to ensure that the wonderful people that we have within our organization have the opportunity to be able to reinvent themselves, upskill, reskill. And from the start of that, I think it's really about making learning part of your culture, that you should lead by example. And what do I mean by that? That the leaders need to be part of and demonstrate a desire and love of learning. You know, whether you're sharing books or whether you're sharing, you know, your learning path yourself. And that's something that I do with the people that work in my team. I actually say, you know, this is my learning path. This is what I'm doing. And every year we design a learning path for each of those people to ensure that they know where they're going. And rewarding and compensating the behavior that's in line with your mission for a continuous learning culture. So in other words, if people are learning, you need to recognize that. You need to reward that. You need to gamify it, right? And recognize the fact that they are doing what they can to make sure that they are delivering the very best services that are there. And you have to consistently communicate your values around learning. It's in your job descriptions. It's part of your recruitment process. Every person I interview, I say, you know, how do you make sure that you're keeping up with the newest developments? How do you learn? What is your way of making sure that you have the right information consistently? Because the world of technology is moving so quickly. This is not a world for people who do not like to learn. And it has to be recognized in performance appraisals and bonuses as well. And fundamental to the creation of a community of excellence is to identify champions. And so it's so important that we actually have champions that create an area for knowledge sharing, collaboration, and we encourage coaching and mentoring. And the only way we're going to do that is making it part of performance appraisals and that people log their hours. So, you know, how you learn then. This is a great slide that just says, hey, you know, you need to use a mixture of all of these things, right? So, you know, think about whether you're using e-learning, simulation training, certification training. Make sure that you're getting that experiential training, right? Because we said we're going to do 70% of that people are getting hands-on, right? That you're also, though, leveraging things like mentoring programs, job rotation, all of the rest, and work out what that mixture will be. This is an example of a pyramid structure that I built for my internal teams, right? To say, hey, this is how your learning path looks like. White belt, yellow belt, green belt, and look at that master black belt. For you to be recognized within the organization as a real subject matter expert, you have to spend 20 hours of mentoring others through work groups or training. And why? Because you're creating a culture. And that culture is about information sharing, about learning, and the important things that you put together. There are many free and low-cost options that you can leverage around some of these structured learning as well. So things like Microsoft Learn, the sandbox environments, ISACR, right, GCP, AWS. But it's absolutely critical, and I want to really highlight this, that you use labs, and more labs. And here I really have to make a great call out for XtremeLabs. I mean, one of the things when I was building out skill sets is I loved working with XtremeLabs because they actually had the capability to provide the labs that I needed to make sure that this just wasn't about reading a book, right? Because I mean, you can read a book on driving, but I guarantee you, you can't drive at the end of that. So it's equally, if you're doing technology, you have to have the hands-on. You cannot do it without it. And then a word around staff retention. I'm sure many of you have seen this in the press. If you have not, then you will shortly, because there's a lot of talk around this, right? It's actually called the Great Resignation Crisis. Resignation rates are really heating up, signaling high risk of turnover, right? And really, labor and workplace experts have predicted a post-pandemic resignation boom. So what you need to do is make sure that you're giving your people a mechanism to be able to feel that their efforts are recognized. And if you do train people, you know, sometimes people say, hey, I don't want to train people because I have to pay them more money. Yes, but if you hired a new person, you'd have to pay them more money anyway, and you're training them to be able to do the job that you need them to do well. So do recognize that is something that has been predicted and is happening in the world. So, you know, make sure you have a plan around when you're building your services around staff retention, especially around those niche skills, which we know are hard to hire. So thank you so much to the wonderful XtremeLabs for inviting me to speak on creating the workforce for tomorrow. I myself love learning. I love working in cultures where we're innovative, where we share the culture of learning. So during the pandemic, I actually created a cyber book podcast. So do follow me on Cyber Authors to see on Twitter, so you can join my author interviews and listen to those. I can't tell you how much I've learned from all the books I've read. I hope you enjoyed this session and that you found it useful. And if you have any questions, please do use the chat.
Thank you so much, Sushila, for such an informative session. We do have plenty of questions, and one of them is, what is the value of hands-on training while learning cybersecurity, and how do you get the experience when we are not able to join on a real network or connect on a real network?
That's a great question. So, you know, if you're looking at your own personal career path, right, the first thing you want to do is establish what part of cybersecurity you want to learn, right? So perhaps we want to learn cloud security, right? If you choose cloud security, then what you're going to find is you have access to resources that are going to provide you with the capability to learn. So hands-on labs, that's a really great way that you could purchase. The other thing you can use is things like Microsoft Learn, which also has sandbox environments where you can also use it. Almost all of the cloud providers provide free tier access, which means for 1 year, you get free access to their environment. So you should use a mixture of these capabilities to be able to provide you with the hands-on. And the final suggestion that I will make as well is, if you want a career in cyber, then volunteer. And I say this, it's really, you know, people often say to me, but how do I get into this particular field of work? And I'll say, you know what? Volunteer. That'll give you the hands-on experience. Find a local business, preferably a nonprofit that needs some help, and say, you know what? I'm going to help you manage your office environment or whatever it is, and I'm going to help you secure it. How cool would that be? You're helping a nonprofit and you're upskilling yourself, and you could get experience to put on your resume. So yeah.
Perfect, Sushila. Here is another question. I think it is from an employer. The attendee is asking that if any employee gets the required skill and still is not able to outperform, then how should we deal with this situation?
Right. So you have somebody that has gone ahead and done some training, and they are not performing the technology tasks that you require to the standard that you require. So you'd have to do a little bit of an assessment to work out where that's coming from. Is the fact that this person, have you given them enough opportunity to do job shadowing, right? To be able to get that hands-on experience through things like labs. Very often we send somebody on a 5-day course, right? And maybe that if it's all theory, that's they're not going to have that experience to be able to actually do the task. So my advice is that you combine training with coaching, and here I'm going to differ coaching from mentoring. Coaching is somebody that does the same job, that is helping this new person come up to speed, and then ensure in that way that the person has additional support. Because we should remember, different people learn in different ways. And so if you've provided them with the capability to be able to learn these tasks, make sure that you're measuring so that you're seeing them do exams or other metrics that you're putting in place. And if they're struggling, then make sure that they have a coach and a champion that's going to help them with their upskill.